The dead man's phone began ringing inside a plastic evidence bag at 2:17 inches the morning. Evelyn Hart stared at it from across the digital forensics lab, one hand frozen above her keyboard. That was impossible. The device had no SIM card. Its battery had been removed when Chicago police logged it 6 hours earlier. She had personally placed the phone inside an isolated enclosure before beginning the extraction. Yet the black screen glowed. One notification appeared. Voicemail recovered. Then the overhead lights went out. Evelyn did not scream. She reached beneath the desk for the emergency flashlight, heard the magnetic lock on the laboratory door release, and saw a man step through the darkness. Tall, black suit, no hurry. Matteo Viscari. Even people who had never met him knew the name. The Viscari organization controlled enough construction unions, shipping contracts, restaurants, clubs, and whispered debts to make respectable businessmen lower their voices whenever he entered a room. Newspapers called him an alleged crime boss because newspapers had lawyers. Everyone else simply called him dangerous. Evelyn raised the flashlight. "You're not authorized to be here." Matteo stopped. His gaze moved past her to the glowing phone. Neither is that message. The emergency lights flickered on. Evelyn had expected menace from him. Instead, Matteo looked tired. Not ordinary tired. The kind that settled into a man after years of never sleeping, without expecting bad news. "How did you get inside?" she asked. "You should leave." "That wasn't my question." "No." His eyes returned to hers. "It rarely is." She disliked him immediately. That helped. The phone belonged to Anthony Caruso, a financial advisor found dead inside his Mercedes beneath a downtown parking garage. The police had hired Evelyn's private laboratory because Caruso's devices were heavily encrypted. Matteo apparently had his own reason for wanting the data. Evelyn folded her arms. "If you touch that evidence, I call the police." "If I wanted it gone, Evelyn, you wouldn't have received it." Her expression changed. He noticed. "You know my name." Matteo said nothing. The phone chimed again. A waveform appeared. File name. VM Uch. Evelyn clicked it before he could stop her. Static filled the room. Then a younger version of Matteo Viscari's voice came through the computer speakers. "If you ever hear this, something went wrong." Matteo closed his eyes. Evelyn looked from the monitor to him. The recording continued. "I saw you tonight. You were wearing that ridiculous yellow coat again." Evelyn stopped breathing. She had owned a yellow coat. Years ago, before she had ever met Matteo. The voice became quieter. "You stood outside St. Catherine's emergency room for 40 minutes because you thought your father was going to wake up." Evelyn slammed the spacebar. Silence. Her father had died at St. Catherine's 12 years earlier, after a hit-and-run driver left him bleeding on Halsted Street. She slowly removed her hand from the keyboard. "How do you know about my father?" Matteo stared at the dark waveform. "That message wasn't supposed to survive. That is not an answer." "No." "You were there?" He looked at her. "Yes." Something cold opened inside her chest. Matteo stepped closer, then stopped before entering the space she had unconsciously claimed around herself. "You need to shut down every machine connected to Caruso's device." "Why?" "Because if voicemail 3 survived, other things did too." Evelyn gave a short, humorless laugh. "You walk into my lab at 2 in the morning. Tell me you watched me outside the hospital when my father died, and now you expect me to follow instructions?" "No." His voice was calm. "I expect you to hate me enough to stay alive." The monitors flashed. File directories began opening without input. Someone was accessing the extraction remotely. Evelyn turned immediately. Her anger disappeared beneath professional instinct. She disconnected the network switch, killed the wireless bridge, and physically removed the lab's fiber connection. The screen froze halfway through an unauthorized transfer. Matteo watched her hands. Fast. Certain. No panic. "What did they get?" he asked. Nothing. You're sure? I designed the isolation system. For the first time, something almost like approval moved through his face. Then, glass shattered somewhere downstairs. Matteo pulled Evelyn away from the window before she heard the second crack. A bullet struck the wall where she had been standing. He brought her behind the concrete equipment island, covering her with his body, but keeping his hands carefully away from anywhere unnecessary. Evelyn could feel his breathing. Slow, controlled. Hers wasn't. He spoke near her ear. Still think I came for the phone? She swallowed. I haven't decided. That's encouraging. She almost laughed, despite herself. Footsteps sounded in the hallway. Matteo's men appeared moments later, securing the building. He never drew a weapon in front of her. He simply stood when the danger passed and offered his hand. Evelyn ignored it and stood by herself. Again, that flicker of approval. Annoying. By sunrise, she had moved the evidence to an offline backup facility nobody outside her company knew existed. Matteo came with her, not because she invited him, because the surviving voicemail had changed the case. 37 deleted audio fragments were hidden beneath Caruso's financial data. Everyone originated from the same old cellular account, Matteo's. Evelyn sat in front of 3 monitors while he stood behind the glass partition, jacket removed, white shirt sleeves rolled once at the wrist. 37, she said. I know. You recorded 37 messages. Yes. For me? A pause. Yes. And never sent them. No. Why? That question becomes complicated. I recover corrupted data for a living. Complicated is billable. That got the smallest reaction from him. Almost a smile. Evelyn turned back to the screen before she could react to that. The earliest file had been created 11 years ago. The newest, 8 months ago. She restored fragments one at a time. Most were harmless. I saw you leave your new office today. You finally replaced the yellow coat. You were arguing with a parking meter. The meter appeared to win. Evelyn removed one headphone. You were stalking me. Matteo's jaw tightened. Monitoring. Men like you always invent expensive words for disturbing behavior. I had people watching you after your father died. Why? To make sure nobody finished what they started. The room went still. Evelyn turned completely. My father's death wasn't random. No. She studied him. You knew that for 12 years. Yes. And you let me believe a drunk driver killed him. Yes. Her chair scraped against the floor as she stood. You have 30 seconds to explain why I shouldn't walk outside and tell the first detective I see everything you just said. You should. That stopped her. Matteo picked up his jacket. But first, recover the messages. Why? Because you won't believe my explanation without them. He headed toward the door. Evelyn hated that he understood her well enough to know that. Where are you going? To find out who shot at your laboratory. You mean, who shot at us? Matteo looked back. No. They were shooting at you. The shooter had used ammunition connected to a private security company owned by Daniel Rusk, a former federal contractor who now handled internal security for several corporations tied to the Vescari organization. Matteo's own security chief. That night, Matteo returned with a cut along his cheek. Evelyn did not ask how he got it. He watched her examining the audio. You should go home. You've had me followed for 11 years. You know I don't go home when I'm working. I stopped the surveillance 3 years ago. Congratulations on your personal growth. His mouth tightened. She pointed to the chair beside her. Sit. Why? You're bleeding on my floor. Matteo obeyed. That surprised her, more than it should have. She cleaned the cut, using the first aid kit. He remained perfectly still while she worked. Up close, he looked less like the photographs attached to newspaper articles. There were lines near his eyes. A faint scar crossed the edge of his jaw. His phone rested in his palm. Every few minutes, He turned it face down. "You always do that?" Evelyn asked. "What?" "Turn your phone over." "Yes." "Why?" Matteo hesitated. "My father used to leave his phone face up at dinner. Every call mattered more than whoever sat across from him. So yours stays face down." "Yes." "A private ritual. A tiny refusal to become someone else." Evelyn placed a bandage over his cheek. "There. Thank you." She expected him to leave. Instead, he remained. For 2 hours they listened to broken recordings. In one, Matteo sounded angry. "I should tell you." "I know I should." Another contained only 17 seconds of breathing before he deleted it. In another, he said, "You laughed today. I hadn't heard you do that in months." Evelyn stopped the recording. "You knew when I was having a bad year? Your mother was sick." Evelyn looked sharply at him. "My mother recovered." "I know." "How?" Matteo glanced at her. She answered herself. "Monitoring." "Yes. You are aware that saying it calmly doesn't make it less strange." "I'm beginning to understand." She shook her head, but the anger was changing shape. She did not like that either. The following morning brought the first major break. Caruso had not stored Matteo's voicemails because he was blackmailing him. He had been protecting them. Buried inside the audio metadata were cryptographic keys that unlocked an entirely different archive. Financial ledgers, internal communications, bribes, and surveillance reports dating back 15 years. Evelyn found her father's name within 20 minutes. Thomas Hart. Occupation: forensic accountant. Status: compromised. She stared at the screen. Matteo stood motionless behind her. "My father worked for you." "No." "For your organization." "Yes." "He was investigating you. He was auditing a charity foundation controlled by my uncle." Evelyn scrolled. "What did he find?" "Money being moved through pediatric medical grants." Her face changed. Matteo continued. "My uncle was laundering narcotics revenue through hospitals. Your father discovered it." "And you?" "I was 26. I had just been brought into the organization." "You knew." "I learned 3 days before your father died." Evelyn pushed back from the desk. "And did nothing." Matteo's face did not defend itself. "I confronted my uncle." "That isn't nothing." "It was worse." She stared. He realized someone had talked. Evelyn understood. Her father had died because Matteo had tried to challenge the man responsible. Cause and effect. Not innocence. Not exactly guilt either. Somehow, that was harder. Matteo looked toward the window. "My uncle ordered the hit. I arrived after it happened." "Why were you at the hospital?" "I followed the ambulance. To see if he died, to see whether his daughter was alone." That hurt more than she expected. Evelyn looked away. "You should have told me." "I know." "When?" "Every year." His eyes shifted toward the recovered voicemail list. "Apparently, 37 times." For the first time, she understood what the messages actually were. Not love letters. Confessions he could not complete. Matteo's hidden fear was not death. It was entering Evelyn's life and destroying whatever remained untouched. His moral boundary appeared that afternoon when Rusk called. Matteo answered on speaker because Evelyn insisted. "You have the woman," Rusk said. "Give me Caruso's files." Matteo's voice cooled. "You fired into a civilian workplace. She isn't a civilian anymore. She is to me." "Worstglaufe. That sentiment is exactly why your father never trusted you." Matteo's hand tightened. Rusk continued. "Your uncle understood something you never did. Families survive because people are willing to do unpleasant things." Matteo looked at Evelyn. "My uncle murdered an accountant in front of his daughter's future. He protected the organization." "No." Matteo's voice became frighteningly quiet. "He murdered someone who never chose this life. That is where the line was then. That is where it remains." After the call ended, Evelyn studied him. "You won't hurt civilians." "Not intentionally." That answer sounded carefully worded. "It is." She appreciated that more than a lie. By the third night, exhaustion had flattened the hostility between them. They ate takeout in the evidence room. Matteo removed olives from his pizza. Evelyn watched. You order pizza with olives and remove them. My people ordered it. You're a feared criminal executive who cannot communicate basic pizza preferences. I have other responsibilities. That's tragic. He looked at her. She laughed. Matteo stared for half a second too long. Evelyn noticed. So did he. Neither mentioned it. After that, small routines developed without permission. He brought coffee at 7. She corrected the amount of sugar by the second morning. He learned she worked barefoot when concentrating. She learned he called his younger sister every evening, no matter where he was. He never touched Evelyn's chair without asking. She stopped flinching when he stood behind her. The archive grew darker. Rusk had been working with Matteo's uncle years earlier. When the uncle died, Rusk preserved his operation. Caruso discovered it. That was why Caruso had copied Matteo's voicemail archive. The audio files contained timestamps that could prove Matteo was elsewhere during several crimes Rusk intended to blame on him. Caruso had hidden evidence inside the one collection of data Matteo would never voluntarily expose. His private messages to Evelyn. He knew you'd destroy these if you found them, Evelyn said. Yes. So he used your shame as encryption. Matteo considered that. Anthony always was irritating. She smiled. Then voicemail 17 finished restoring. Matteo immediately reached for the keyboard. Evelyn blocked him. What's in it? Delete. No. Evelyn, you told me the messages were evidence. That one isn't. Then why are you afraid of it? He looked at her hand resting over the keyboard. I'm not afraid of the recording. What are you afraid of? You believing it? She played it. Matteo's younger voice filled the room. I saw you with someone today. Silence. I hated him for putting his hand on your back. Evelyn glanced at Matteo. The recording continued. That isn't your problem. It's mine. A breath. I have no right to want anything from you. Another pause. But sometimes, I imagine walking into that coffee shop and sitting across from you like a normal man. The recording ended. Evelyn slowly removed the headphones. Matteo looked toward the window. Who was the man? He asked. She blinked. What? In the coffee shop. Despite everything. She laughed. My cousin. Matteo closed his eyes. That makes the recording considerably worse. That might be my favorite one now. Please. Develop worse taste. That was the moment the relationship shifted. Not with a kiss. With embarrassment. With laughter neither had expected to share. Then Evelyn discovered someone had accessed the archive from inside Matteo's home network. Not recently. For years. They were listening, she said. Matteo's expression hardened. To the messages? Somebody copied fragments after you deleted them. His face changed. For the first time, she saw genuine fear. Not for himself. For here. You recorded these on your personal phone. Yes. Who had access? Almost nobody. Evelyn traced old backup logs. The answer arrived at midnight. Matteo's younger sister, Sophia. He stared at the name. That's impossible. Why? She was 17 when this started. Teenagers understand cloud backups better than Mafia bosses. He did not appreciate the joke. They called Sophia. She came voluntarily. 28 years old now, dressed in jeans and an oversized coat. She looked at Matteo, with the exhaustion only younger siblings seemed capable of producing. I knew, she said. Matteo started. For 11 years? Not everything. You copied private recordings. You kept deleting them. They were mine. To delete. You were miserable. Matteo looked almost offended. That did not grant you administrative access to my phone. Sophia turned to Evelyn. He has been this emotionally impossible since birth. Evelyn covered a smile. Sophia explained that she had preserved some recordings because Matteo's uncle had been using the family's communications network to monitor him. Later, she gave fragments to Caruso. When he feared Rusk was preparing to overthrow Matteo, you protected him, Evelyn said. Sophia shook her head. I protected whoever he would become if he ever stopped protecting everyone except himself. Matteo looked away. Then Sophia delivered the final piece. There was one message Anthony cared about more than the others. Evelyn already knew. Voicemail 3. Sophia nodded. He said it proved what really happened the night your father died. Matteo stood. No. Evelyn looked at him. What was on it? We already heard part. No. We heard a recovered fragment. Matteo's voice sharpened. Leave it buried. She stood too. You don't get to decide that. I know what's in it, and I've spent 12 years not knowing. I was trying to protect you. Her eyes flashed. You keep calling silence protection. That landed. Matteo said nothing. Evelyn stepped closer. Maybe it protected you. He looked at her then. That truth hurt. The third voicemail was too damaged for ordinary recovery. Evelyn spent 11 hours rebuilding it from redundant cloud fragments, error correction blocks, and partial waveform caches hidden inside Caruso's archive. At dawn, the final segment appeared. Matteo stood on the opposite side of the lab. He did not ask her to stop again. Evelyn pressed play. His 26-year-old voice sounded broken. Your father woke up for 12 seconds. Evelyn's hand tightened around the desk. He told me not to tell you what he had found. Her eyes filled. He said you would chase the truth because you were like him. Matteo's recorded breathing trembled. He made me promise to keep you outside this world. A longer pause. I promised. Then came the part Matteo had feared. I'm the reason they knew he was the one investigating them. Evelyn closed her eyes. I confronted my uncle without thinking. Thomas died because I wanted to prove I was different from the men who raised me. The recording ended with one final sentence. I'm sorry, Evelyn. I don't think I'll ever have the courage to say that where you can hear me. The room remained silent. Matteo waited. Evelyn did not cry dramatically. She simply sat. Her shoulders moved once. Then again. Matteo started toward her. Stopped. His hands remained at his sides. That restraint mattered. She looked at him through tears. My father asked you to protect me. Yes. And you turned that promise into surveillance. Yes. You decided for me. What I could know. Yes. You let me spend 12 years thinking his death meant nothing. Matteo's voice roughened. Yes. She stood. I need you to leave. He did. No argument. No touch. No request for forgiveness. Outside, Matteo made the decision that destroyed the life he had spent 20 years building. He sent the entire Vescari archive to federal prosecutors. Financial records, names, properties, bribery accounts, everything, including evidence against himself. By noon, his lawyers were screaming. By 1, 3 captains had abandoned him. At 2, Rusk kidnapped Sophia. Evelyn found out because Matteo's final text contained only 4 words. Stay inside the lab. She immediately ignored it. Not recklessly, professionally. Rusk's people had sent Matteo a live video feed of Sophia inside an industrial server facility on the south side. Evelyn examined the compression artifacts. This isn't live. Matteo looked at her. What? The timestamp is being spoofed. She isolated reflected light from a server cabinet, identified the manufacturer, then matched a maintenance barcode visible for 2 frames. Within 15 minutes, she located the actual facility. Matteo could not have done that. His men could not have done that. Evelyn could. They reached the building before Rusk expected them. Matteo wanted her outside. She refused. If Sophia is near those servers, killing power could lock the doors. He looked at her. You stay behind me. I stay where the control panels are. For once, he accepted the correction. The confrontation ended without the war Rusk expected. Evelyn accessed the building system and opened every secure door simultaneously. Matteo's remaining loyal men reached Sofia. Rusk found himself standing in a glass server room with no hostage and nowhere to hide. He looked through the glass at Matteo. You burned your entire empire for one woman's forgiveness. Matteo glanced at Evelyn. No, then at Sofia, for the ability to stop becoming the men who built it. Rusk was arrested alive. Matteo insisted on it. He wanted testimony, names, truth, not revenge. 3 months later, Matteo Vescari stood in federal court and admitted to crimes he could no longer justify as inheritance. He surrendered control of every illegal operation still attached to his name. Several legitimate companies survived under independent management. Much of his wealth did not. His freedom became conditional, negotiated through cooperation extensive enough to dismantle organizations prosecutors had pursued for years. But the sacrifice was permanent. There would be no return to the man he had been. Evelyn did not visit him during those months. She needed distance. She needed anger without his presence influencing it. She needed to grieve her father again, this time with the truth. Then a university data recovery project contacted her laboratory. An obsolete cloud server had been donated for forensic research. Inside it were several corrupted consumer backups from more than a decade earlier. One belonged to Matteo. Evelyn stared at the file list. 37 voicemails. Not fragments. Full recordings. Sofia had copied more than anyone realized. Evelyn listened over several weeks. She heard Matteo age. He changed from angry young heir to exhausted leader. She heard him worry when her mother was ill, celebrate when Evelyn opened her laboratory, complain when she cut her hair because he apparently liked it longer, then immediately criticize himself for having an opinion. She laughed at that one. She cried at others. The final recording had been made 8 months before Caruso died. Matteo sounded calm. I think I finally understand why I never send these. A pause. It isn't because I'm protecting you. Evelyn leaned closer. It's because if I speak to you, you get to decide what I am. She stopped breathing. And I've been afraid you'll decide correctly. After listening, Evelyn drove across Chicago. Matteo now lived in a modest townhouse near Lincoln Park, under strict legal supervision. No guards at the door. No black cars lining the curb. He opened the door wearing a gray sweater and looked stunned to see her. Evelyn held up her phone. I found the backup. His face fell. All of it? All of it. I'm deeply sorry about voicemail 22. That was the one about my haircut. Yes. You were wrong. I understand. You had terrible judgment. In several areas. She almost smiled. Matteo remained inside the doorway. He did not ask her to enter. Evelyn appreciated that too. I'm still angry, she said. You should be. I don't know if I forgive you for all of it. I know. My father's promise wasn't yours to interpret forever. I know. She looked at him. You say that a lot now. I've had time to discover how often you were right. That must be difficult. Extremely. Silence settled between them. Comfortable this time. Evelyn reached into her coat pocket and took out an old black phone. Matteo recognized it immediately. His first voicemail phone. Caruso had preserved it. She handed it to him. There's one thing missing. Matteo frowned. What? You never actually sent me a message. He looked at the phone, then at her. Evelyn stepped back. I'm getting coffee on Clark Street tomorrow morning. His breathing changed slightly. Is that information or an invitation? You're supposedly good at interpreting threats. I'm considerably less skilled with invitations. 8:30. She turned toward the sidewalk. Behind her, Matteo said her name. Not through a recording. Not through static. Not 12 years too late. Evelyn. She looked back. He had not moved. His phone rested face down on the table behind him. I'm sorry, he said. No speech followed. No defense. No request. just the words he had spent 37 recordings trying to avoid. Evelyn nodded. I know. The next morning, Matteo arrived at the coffee shop at 8:20. Evelyn was already there. He sat across from her, like the normal man he had once imagined becoming. Months later, they still moved slowly. Some days were easy, others were not. Trust did not erase history. Love did not make consequences disappear, but Matteo learned to answer questions instead of deciding which truths Evelyn could survive. Evelyn learned that understanding a man did not require excusing him. They created routines that belonged to neither guilt nor protection. Sunday coffee, late-night takeout, Sophia invading dinner without warning, Matteo removing olives from pizza while Evelyn insulted him for ordering them. And whenever fear made him retreat into silence, Evelyn would tap the phone beside his hand. Use your words, Vescari. He usually hated that. He always tried. A year after the Caruso case ended, Evelyn's laboratory created a scholarship for students entering digital forensics. It carried Thomas Hart's name. The first ceremony took place on a bright October afternoon. Evelyn stood outside afterward in a mustard-yellow coat she had bought deliberately. Matteo noticed immediately. That coat is ridiculous. She smiled. So I've been told. He offered his hand. This time, she took it. Her phone vibrated as they began walking. One new voicemail from Matteo. Evelyn stopped. He looked suddenly uncomfortable. You sent me a voicemail while standing 3 feet away. I'm practicing. She opened it. His recorded voice said only 7 words. I'm here. And I'm not disappearing anymore. Evelyn looked at him. For years, Matteo Vescari had spoken most honestly to a woman who could not hear him. Now she could, and for the first time in his life, he was brave enough to press send.